Film is a medium that transports. All I have to do is pop myself in front of the TV to watch a movie, and I can just enjoy it, whatever place the film takes me to.
Movies have always been an escape. It gives you a whole new world to be in.
I have a rekindled love affair with movies.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Reel to Reel Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and we have arrived once again at the point where we will be talking movies with some fantastic people. You know who they are, Susan Chisholm and Paul Britton, the other Reel to Reel Talkers team. Today, we're going to visit a topic that has already been discussed on this show, but we must close the circle. Yeah. We must all have the opportunity to discuss what I think is one of the greatest films ever to be made. And I don't think it's overselling it to say so, because today we're going to talk about The Fifth Element.
Yes.
I have to say that,
yeah, go ahead.
You know, when Susan was first on the show, so long ago, this was a topic that she and I discussed. And Paul, you talked about how it's a movie you're fond of as well. So guys, I'm excited about this conversation and where it's going to go.
I felt left out. I wanted to be a part of the cool kids that gets to talk about The Fifth Element for a whole episode. So
absolutely. Well, you're always one of the cool kids, Paul.
Awesome. Thank you.
So
I know you don't mean it, but that's all right.
She'll say she's a cooler kid. Susan, I know you're excited to have this conversation once again, I imagine.
I am. I'm so stoked.
Yeah, baby.
Well, you know, I thought about it and I said to myself, Self, and then I replied, I said, what, Self? I think because, Susan, you and I have already had a discussion on the show about The Fifth Element, Paul, who's being sort of looped into this conversation to complete the circle, as I said, I'm going to invite you, Paul, to lead the discussion perhaps, and maybe take us in a few directions that you'd like to go so that we can have a unique and different approach to our view of this movie. So, Paul, it's all yours. I'm turning the wheel over to you, if you'd like, for our discussion on The Fifth Element.
Oh, it's loopy, all right. Okay, so The Fifth Element was released May 9th, 1997. So it's a little over 23 years old now.
Oh my
gosh. 23 years ago, yes.
That's crazy.
The budget for the movie was $93 million. And domestic, it only made $63 million. It made over $200 million worldwide, but it did not. Usually, the studios consider it a failure if its domestic haul does not cover the budget. So this was a little bit of a flop, not a super flop, but definitely not something that the studio thought, oh, this was fantastic. But then it caught on cable. This movie. And, if you had basic cable at any time between, say, 1998 and 2005, odds were pretty good you could just turn on a basic cable somewhere and Fifth Element was playing, because it had a really good following. It was a bit of a cult movie, a little bit of a cult classic. And as such, given the fact that it didn't do well up front, but did have a huge following afterwards. My first question is how did you guys discover this? You know, let's be honest, it's a kind of weird movie. Susan, because it's your favorite, we'll begin with you.
So, if I remember correctly, it was one of those movies that, like you said, it was on all the time on basic cable. And it was one of those movies that my dad had playing in the background while he rested his eyes on a Sunday afternoon. But like, but at the time also, like, I had a huge thing like for Bruce Willis, because and I was just kind of like, I'm gonna see what this is all about. And I mean, I was older the first time I saw it. I didn't see it when it first came out because I was young. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, no, understood. Sergio and I are old. That's it. That's all. That's all you need to say. Paul and Sergio are old and were well into their 20s when this movie came out. Keep going.
So yeah. So I mean, it was something that I think I caught probably in the middle, or even like the last third of the movie, and then I knew that I saw it and I had to watch it again because it was amazing. Yeah. So that's how I kind of picked up on it there.
Sure. So Sergio, same question.
Yeah, for myself, it was a movie I caught at the theater, so I was one of the few. Well, maybe not few, but I was someone who caught it in its first run and immediately fell in love. I have been a fan of Luc Besson, and it was just, I'm always attracted to something that's weird when it comes to movies and such, and the visuals of it. The cast, of course, Bruce Willis. Again, I'm immediately curious if it's Bruce Willis and especially if it's action.
Yeah.
And so I discovered it in its first run, and it's one of those movies I've said often that if I'm walking through a room and it's on, I'm gonna pop a squat and finish it. I mean, it's just, and that happens a lot. This movie falls second only to Nicolas Cage's The Rock in terms of constantly on at some point, at least once a month. And so it's The Rock and then The Fifth Element.
Right.
And I can go, and it's fun every time. And so, that's when I first discovered it was in its first run.
Were you aware of it before it came out? Like, how far because there are movies that you remember being aware of it a long time in advance, and
probably not more in advance of say a standard time frame of the trailer coming out initially, that kind of thing. This, trailers were done very different back then, in that there's not this sort of, mini 30-second, hint, and then, you get trailers, and, it wasn't like that back then. But I remember when I first saw the trailer, it was more than likely in a theater. When I was watching something else. And I remember immediately wanting to know, when will this come out? And if I'm not mistaken, it probably had one of those moments that often happen with trailers where it's this fantastic thing that's being advertised and then it says coming soon. And you're like, fuck, give me a month. Like, don't just tell me coming soon. So
this was a movie that actually, I don't know if you remember it, had a teaser poster. Now that was something that he used to do a lot, were teaser posters instead of like teaser trailers, where like there was just this, like, I remember in the winter being at home and seeing this weird poster of like Fifth Element and like, what is the Fifth Element or something. I think that's exactly what it was. What is the Fifth Element?
Right.
And like, what the hell is this? And then finding out a few months later that it was a Bruce Willis movie, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, like, for sure. But I don't remember there being a lot of advertisements for it. Do you?
No, there really wasn't. And that's the thing, is that nowadays we're inundated with trailers and clips and this and that, where back then it was like, okay, your curiosity's peaked, and then it might ebb until it releases, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And now it's time to go see it.
So were you aware of La Femme Nikita and The Professional?
Yes.
Luc Besson? Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
So Susan, back to you. One of the things I like about movies that I've seen like more than a dozen times is that there's always, if I'm putting it in, not like coming across it randomly, but if I'm putting it in, I find like there's a scene or a line or something that happens that like gets me like totally into it. Like, is there something like that with this movie for you, where it's like you see it and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go? Or are you just like, the second you're putting it,
I'm taken, by the very first, image on the screen. I'm just like, I'm wrapped, I'm ready to go. And because it's because there are so many of those moments that in the movie. So no matter where you go, no matter where you start the movie, if you walk into the middle of it and you flop down on the ground and just, you're on the screen, it doesn't matter what it is, you're in. It draws you right away.
Right.
Even my kids, so my kids can quote the entire movie from beginning to end. They do all the time. So yeah, I think that's, there's not really one particular moment that is a stronger pull than any other one. It's just whatever moment I sit down, I'm already in it.
And to Sergio's earlier point, that is one of the things about this movie, is that you just walk by and you can hop in at any moment, and it's great. Yeah. How about you, Sergio? Is there something or like that loops you in when you're watching the whole thing?
Sure. I mean, I would say that, now, years and years later, Aziz Light is exactly where, I'm already excited. But I know back then, and on revisiting it, the scene that to this day, so I'm going to kind of modify my answer to the question, because to both of y'all's points, there's so many. You know, you could walk through a room, like you said, and pick up exactly where and know exactly where the story is. But the moment I love the most that does that to me is when when they're in Bruce Willis's mini apartment, and Cornelius bops him on the head to get the tickets. And just it's Bruce Willis's facial reaction to being hit, and and that weird sort of off frame fall that he does, and that to me is, you know, you already know you're on the ride, but that for me is sort of, there's an ebb and then it just shoots you forward, and I love that moment, because and that's one of those moments that again, I can recount more than once where that's where the film has been, and I'm like, oh, here we go, it's about to. Or even if I have to keep walking through the room, I will wait for that scene to play out just to see his facial reaction upon getting hit. So
it's like what the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, oh, and it's just that fall out of frame that is so awesomely done.
So I obviously I love the Aziz Light bit. The opening though, it's a little odd, it's a little slow for me. I just, as soon as Bruce Willis shows up, I love the design of his apartment, like his quote unquote apartment. It's just like, it is just you know, it was a few years after I lived in New York, and I lived in a tiny little studio, so I can totally relate to what you know, his living space. But I mean, it's just the Corbin Dallas is just such a great character that as soon as he shows up, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's do this. And speaking of the set design for Corbin's apartment, is visually, you know, one of the things that's really unique about this movie are the visuals are just you know you're watching a sci-fi movie, you know, like there's just no doubt about it. And you're watching a sci-fi movie that is not pretending or attempting or trying to be, you know, this is a possible future for the Earth, you know, at all. It's not going for that. It's just this is bonkers, and here you go. Is there Susan, is there anything visually that really stands out the most for you? Like, is there something that you really like visually that does it for you?
You mean specifically? I mean,
like
we were talking about
the sets or the costumes or just anything, like, or the you know, anything, art.
I mean, I feel like I keep giving the same answer every time. I mean, I don't think that there's any one thing that strikes me more than another thing. Like, there's always something to catch your eye. So I mean, in one scene it might be, you know, the costumes, they're always so bright, and like they're not what's the word I'm looking for here? I gotta think of it. Like they're not plain. There's always something kind of a little bit outrageous about it. The scenery and everything to me is a little bit less, maybe because that's kind of what they're going for, is like the future is this like sterile, you know, like his apartment, for example, it's all white and cream colored, you know. It's not like he doesn't have any pictures on the wall. He has the hands and the circles, and that's it. But like, you know, that to me, I mean, I'd be able to say costumes that everything is so brightly colored and very meant to grab your attention, and so it does.
For sure. Sergio, is there
I want to piggyback on the point Susan's making, because one of the things I've noticed about the film, and this is maybe me overanalyzing it, when you're in an enclosed space like a room, like his apartment, or like Zorg's office, you have that plain wall feel of a space. It's not until you get to Cornelius's apartment that you're like, okay, now we're seeing a little bit more, you know, happening, but it's still quite plain in comparison to everything outside of the doors of those places. The visual chaos that comes at you, I think that's very purposeful. Even when you get to the final scene in the, you know, the pyramid or whatever they're in, or again back to plain.
Even Floss in Paradise is, you know, it's beautiful, but like outside of like the welcome hall area, like the rooms are pretty, you know, there's not like a lot of flowiness with it. Or showiness, I should say.
For me though, it's the costumes, it's the visual impact. Every character has a specific thing that stands out about them.
Right.
Even the character of the deaf athlete, I forget his name, his hair, stands out, and that's in comparison to Chris Tucker's role. I mean, if your hair is going to stand out, but Plava Laguna forever will be, it's still to this day stuns me. Yeah. And that's before she starts the whole singing and dance portion of her scene. It's that visual is so arresting that, again, it's because I would love to have been inside the brain of the costume design and costume team for this film. And costumes is not usually something I'm all that curious about.
Right.
This one though, oh man, Zorg. I mean, I could go on forever about costumes with this film.
Well, let's bring up the costume designer. Jean-Paul Gaultier is the costume designer, and really extremely famous in the world of fashion. Did that name mean anything to either of you, like either before or after you saw the movie? Susan, you're nodding, yes?
I mean, it's something that I was familiar with. It was, I had heard the name before, but it wasn't something, definitely not something that I was personally familiar with, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But definitely with the name it's high fashion. It's popular. It's a name you hear.
Right.
Yeah. And it speaks to Besson's approach to his filmmaking. He's going to go to the extremes of anything he can to make his vision work. This was, if I remember correctly, Fifth Element he'd been writing since he was a kid.
Yeah.
And so I could just imagine that when the time came, and that's why when you said 93 million, I was like, he kept it under 90, like under 100 million. I was surprised.
In today's dollar, it probably would have been 200, but
sure. Yeah. But when you said that number, I'm like, the costumes alone were in the millions.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, but now, unlike Susan, I was not familiar with that name at the time.
And when the Montechihuans are on the screen at the beginning, I was watching it with my son earlier this week, and as a refresher, and he's like, "Is that do the people who do that are also the people who do the costumes?" And I don't remember which movie he mentioned, but it was one of the Jim Henson Character Shop movies, and I was like, no, Dark Crystal. He asked if it was the same people that did the Dark Crystal. I said, no, it's not the Dark Crystal people. It's it is actually this guy. Jean-Paul Gaultier did those as well. My girlfriend at the time, who I saw the movie with, and who really wanted to go see the movie, just because she knew that Jean-Paul Gaultier had done the costumes. Oh. So like going into the movie, I knew, okay, Jean-Paul Gaultier, like whatever. Yeah. Like, where would you rank the costumes with all-time sci-fi costumes? Because I think it's like one or two. Like I think you're hard pressed to like come up with a movie that has is amazing costumes.
Yeah, no, I mean, first by far. In fact, I don't know that I could even name maybe second or third, simply because most sci-fis.
You have Star Trek, which it's just so common and monotonous that's the problem with most sci-fi. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you think about, okay, so with Star Trek, at least it's very. God, what was
functional?
The word? It's because it's military.
Yeah.
Right.
Of sorts, So. Yeah. Of course, it's going to be kind of monotone. It's going to be kind of boring because it's meant to be a uniform.
Yeah.
Whereas these are people. This is everyday life for these folks walking around with a clear plastic miniskirt,
right.
And a neon green jacket. So I mean, this is what people wear.
Right.
So it would be like comparing, but in terms of other sci-fi, like. I can't think of another one that comes anywhere close, even in the ballpark.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that if George Lucas, when he saw Fifth Element, he might have had the thought, this is what the cantina scene should have been, like in terms of the visuals,
I don't think, I'm not going to go with the cantina, but I think he actually used it for inspiration, perhaps, in the prequels when they were at the opera.
Yeah.
In some of those scenes. Like
I can
there's
see
a
that.
lot of like on Coruscant, when they're there's a lot of stuff that's going on there.
Sure.
Speaking of George Lucas, the art director Michael Lamont actually got his start with George Lucas, and so I'm bringing this up because he was an assistant art director on the original trilogy and on the Indiana Jones movies, and one of my favorite like sets is the airport, where like it's all that garbage, and it just makes me I always think back to like I always just wish that like the creature from A New Hope that was in the trash compactor would poke his head out. Is there any like set that or external something along those lines that sticks out for you guys, Susan?
I don't know. That's a tough question, because I mean, there are different things, like you said, like you could totally see that happening, and it wouldn't necessarily be out of place.
And you wouldn't bat an eye.
Exactly. But there's not really anything that I maybe thought should have been added or like missed.
No, not that. No, I mean, like, is there a set that you love, or a scene that scenic wise that stands out for you?
I think Lost in Paradise.
Okay.
Just the huge, lobby area where basically the firefight takes place, and it's just, I've never. That's a huge space. Like, that's terrifying for me to think about being in a space that big. Like, I couldn't imagine it. But even with it being so big, there wasn't anything. There was still details that you could see. There were still spots that you were like, oh, hey, that's a repeated pattern, whatever. But like, yeah, I think that one was definitely visually like grabbed me. And
how about for you, Sergio?
Yeah, well, for me, the set piece isn't so much a location in specific, but any time that you can see the cityscape, when Corbin gets into his taxi and starts to drive around, when you can see outside of his apartment window when he's eating, before you are fired, before that whole scene plays out. Anytime you can see the cityscape, it fascinates me, because I'm the kind of person that wants to pause and zoom and look and see what I see, because so much attention to detail was played. I agree, the airport is fantastic. I love the guns that come down when when he bangs on the window. But for me, it's just the cityscapes. It's an opportunity to see just how wild the mind of Luc Besson is. For me, it's what he does in the details that maybe sometimes get missed.
Right. Yeah. So the other thing I love about this movie are the characters. I think this movie has so many memorable characters that are even in the movie for less than 5 minutes. So other than Corbin Dallas and Lilo Minay Likataraiba Lamina Chai Ekpate Sabat. Other than those two, who's your favorite character, Susan?
Oh, man.
I mean, if we're talking about like minor characters, because obviously I love all of the leads. If you're talking about minor characters, I love David. The assistant, the junior priest.
Right. The assistant priest. Yeah.
He's so. I don't know. I don't want to say relatable, but he's just kind of like, I don't want to go to Egypt. Like that right there was like. Oh, and like whenever he's in the closet and he's sewing, and Father Cornelius like busts in to get the robe, and he's like, and like everything he does is always just like, oh, you could definitely be a real person, and I could really relate to you.
Yeah. How about you, Sergio? Who's one of your favorite characters?
I don't think all of us would say Ruby Rod is one of the easiest to pick.
Sure.
But again, to your point of it's in the details. I don't know why, but the fact that we get to or at least hear Dallas talk to his mom, I'm a big fan of the scenes with his mother.
Yeah.
It's and again, voice only.
Right.
But oh my goodness, I mean, she just plays such a big role because it really shows us who he is, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
in a world of characters that you could pick any of them because we see them, her voice is one of my favorite parts of this movie. His mom.
How could you do this to your mother? And my favorite interaction with them is when he's talking at the end when the president is there too. Because I love
Exactly.
one of my favorites is the president, and so like just her like ridiculing the president and like with him right there is that's just perfect.
Yeah. The president utters one of my favorite lines of the movie when he says, "I have a doubt." I mean, it's such a great line. Yeah, exactly.
So if you were to make a mini series about one of these like 5, 10, 15-minute characters, like just a 10 series, like a little 10 episode mini series, which character would you pick? And I will start just to give you guys a little moment to think. I would pick the food cart guy.
Yeah,
because
I love it, Mr. Kim.
Yeah. So the reason why is because each episode would be completely disjointed and unrelated to the prior episodes, and so classic 1970s style television show where each episode is completely 100% self-contained, and it's just this, Kim, he's at this window this day, and this is what he sees happen at this window. Because that guy's seeing some messed up crap going down. Like there's shit going down. Do you have Susan? Is there somebody you would like to see a mini series made of to follow around?
So, I mean, obviously, like I could still say David again, but I think I like. I don't think he really has a name in the movie, but he's the Zorg's right hand man. He's played by Tricky, and like I could imagine him getting into some serious shenanigans.
He's called right hand. Yeah,
he's right arm. He's
right
literally
arm.
right arm.
That's right.
Yep.
The stuff that Zorg has to be like sending him to do.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he has to get into. I mean, just outside of that, even what other stuff does he do? Let's find out,
Sergio, do you have...
Oh, man. Mine is a wishful thinking because if we still had the talent that was Brian James, I would love to get a prequel series of Corbin Dallas and his adventures with General Monroe and his little crew that he comes in with. There's for me, tons of stories there,
Yeah, and you wouldn't even need Bruce Willis. Like you could totally cast somebody else as young Corbin Dallas. Yeah. Yeah,
that's true. That
would be fantastic. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
He's got such a great delivery on some of his lines.
Yeah.
You should check your mail. I mean, there's just little lines that are you gonna get that? Like, yeah.
So
that makes me sad.
Thoughts? Yeah. Thoughts on some of the other characters. So you mentioned Ruby Rhod. Is Chris Tucker too good in this? Like, is this just, did he stumble upon his perfect role way too early? And I'll leave this open to the floor.
Let me tell you why I love that question. I'm trying to remember where this landed in relation to his other films because he's done so few. Regardless, did it come too soon? I think so, because because this is Chris Tucker. If you watch his comedy,
right,
this is his comedy. And so, maybe times 5, right? But it's his wheelhouse. And Ruby Rhod isn't Ruby Rhod without the costuming and the way that Chris Tucker embraced that just bizarro look.
Yeah.
And created that character. I can't think of anything that he's done since then that even remotely moves me the way this character does.
Yeah, his Rush Hour movies are fine.
They're fun,
but
yeah.
So Susan, what do you think? Chris Tucker.
I think so. I mean, I think that he. I don't want to say this because it sounds really bad, but I think that he peaked.
He did.
I mean, it was 100% like this is who he should be. This is who he should have been the entire time. So
And
maybe so.
I will say this. Then he got the Rush Hour movies, which were super hyper successful. Yeah. And then you saw the outtakes of the Rush Hour movies and you realize, oh, Rush Hour's it. Like he's done after this. Because I mean, the headache it must be to direct Chris Tucker. I can't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and he was in Friday a couple of years before this. Right. Money Talks was actually, I don't know if y'all have seen it, but it is funny. Okay. With Charlie Sheen. But when you look at his arc, to your point, Paul, and to Susan's, when you look at the filmography he has, this is most certainly his peak. He had a small role in Jackie Brown, but I like Rush Hour films, but nothing near as what I love him as Ruby Rhod.
So let's move to Father Cornelius. One of my takes on Father Cornelius is that I love his intro, like his first scene with the president where he's kind of like laying out the facts and just being like, straight up, this is what's going on. I don't like, when he shows up on Floss in Paradise from that moment forward, I don't like his character. Like it's just, it's too goofy. It's too shticky. And I'm just, am I the only one that feels this way? Like, do you am I wrong?
I'm not going to say you're wrong because that's just like your opinion, man.
Right.
But I don't agree. Okay. I mean, I can see how that could be a thought. I think it breaks up what could potentially be a really like boring kind of, not boring, but like, I think it adds that comic relief almost because it could be serious. It could.
Right. But my rebuttal to that is by the time we're on Floss in Paradise, we have Ruby Rhod. Right. Do we really need shticky Father Cornelius when Ruby Rhod is on this, is already basically stealing every scene?
Well, where I think it turns, and this might just have been, because I don't necessarily agree, but I also don't think of Father Cornelius as being that heavily involved in the last part or last half of the movie as much as before. Where I think it gets shticky is how he gets onto the plane.
Right.
Right. That's where it starts. His character that's where for me, the comedy aspect of his role starts to really come out. Yeah. And is it necessary? No, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I don't think of it as a distraction.
It's not a distraction. It's just that I really love his intro. I love his first scene. Yeah. I love the scene with him and Lilo and Corbin, in the flat, in his flat. But I don't know. It's probably just me. Like I love the character, and then like to have him like fall out of the guts of the plane. It's just like, and all right, physics wise, how is that even working? Like,
right? Because Dave Chappelle didn't survive that in Con Air. So
right, exactly, yeah, and that was an airplane that didn't travel who knows how long through space. So. Last thing on individual characters, Gary Oldman, Zorg. I want your opinions on the accent. And go, Susan.
It was so bad, it was good.
Okay, cool.
I think if it had been more in line with whichever accent he was trying to go with, I don't think it would have been as funny, as good as. I think it would have actually taken away from him because
So you think if he had played it straight completely, you think it's better that his accent is stupid because 100% straight Gary Oldman is almost too much for this movie,
right? And because
interesting
with it being kind of a silly accent, it makes it a lot easier to not take him seriously.
Okay,
like he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
That the good guys are going to win. So right now I don't have to be worried, but because I can actually pay attention to the storyline because I'm not going to take him seriously. He's wearing a damn plastic plate on his head. I can't take him seriously anyway.
Well, so here's my take. The reason that I think I'm okay with the accent is because, and again, you have to be the level of Gary Oldman fan that I am. How many of his roles are so menacing that if he had played this role straight, it would have been too like some of his other work prior to this point. And so it made him unique. In fact, the other thing I'll say is simply this, and to the point of why I can't really judge this as a distracting accent or bad or whatever. I mean, I accepted Nicolas Cage's his accent in Con Air. So
Con Air, yeah.
Yeah, everything else at this point is brilliant comparative to exactly. So it didn't bug me in any way. But as you make me think about what if he had played it straight, it would have been too menacing.
I see, but
you wanted to believe.
You don't think plastic helmet thing and metal leg is enough to like throw you off?
Not in the midst of the visuals of the entire film.
Okay.
That's the only reason that doesn't become. I mean, come on, when he starts to choke on the cherry and everything starts to open up and that little creature comes, we already know that his character is mired in the silly, but what he considers to be riches and power, and so yeah, it's again, it's part of the bigger picture, that accent, that for me it didn't play as big a role as much as his words, because he's got some of the greatest, his monologue to Father Cornelius when he right before he starts to choke, and then of course Cornelius with the payoff punchline. That's what I think makes Zord able to carry that accent, because he has such great things to say. So,
all right. So last question. No explanation necessary. Just shoot out the first thing that comes to your mind. You are given one prop from this movie. What would it be?
One prop?
One prop. Costume, whatever. Anything. One thing. You just get one, though. So it can be a whole costume, or,
I want the stones.
Okay, that's acceptable.
The case. With four stones in it.
With 4 stones in it.
One or two,
not 2 or 3, but 4. Yes,
Perfect.
Perfect. That's acceptable. 100% acceptable.
I love it.
And we're not talking about Pava Laguna with the 4 stones inside of it.
No.
Sergio, one prop or whatever from the movie. What is it?
That's a tough one.
It is.
But I want the gun that Zord was selling. Yeah,
yes.
I want the gun.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because if you hadn't gone there, I might have gone there. I want, speaking of the cherry, choking on the cherry pit scene, I want the little creature thing, the puppet of the little creature thing that comes out of his thing. That's what I want.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, what are you?
Can I tell you one additional weird thing I want?
Sure.
I want Zord's office doors. I don't know why. I've always been fascinated by those doors. It's like when they close.
You need a really big room, though.
Yeah, I'd have to figure out where to put them, but there's just something fascinating to me about those doors.
Dad, we're knocking down the front wall. We're putting in new doors. All right, great. So that's that's how I would run a Fifth Element conversation if we
I love it.
So
that's fantastic. No, and Paul, you asked some questions. I'll tell you that this is what's fun about something like this is I've always seen the movie through the same lens, my own. When Susan you and I had our conversation, I think we explored more of the cinematics and just sort of overall general conversation. But this actually made me think about the movie more. And now I want to see it again. So
did you not watch it this week leading up to this?
It doesn't matter. I was already thinking about turning it on after I walked out here. And yes, I watched it earlier this week.
Okay, good. Thank
you. Who cares?
All right. No, it's good. It's fine. It's good. I highly encourage watching Fifth Element for the 57th time or 150th.
Yeah.
more like 157th.
So I have to ask then, because here on Real to Real Talk we have a 5 taco scale, and if you like a movie enough, you can give it 5 tacos plus guac. Where do we rank The Fifth Element on our taco scale. Paul, since you were our proctor here, tell me.
It's 5 tacos. It's 5
Yeah.
tacos. It's so good.
5 tacos
Absolutely.
and a mountain of guac, like
There you go.
as big as the plate is tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it 5 tacos plus guac and then steal y'all's tacos and guac and put it on top of mine. So.
Whoa!
If you
Hold
reach-
on there, fella.
If you reach,
What
you
the
will
hell fucking planet do you think you're on that you can steal somebody else's tacos?
you will draw back a nub, sir.
Yo!
Absolutely.
This is tacos we're talking about.
Yeah, we don't play with tacos on Real to Real Talk, that's for sure. Well, it has been a fun revisit of a fantastic topic that we all love, and that is the movie The Fifth Element. We encourage you, if you haven't already seen it, first of all, who are you if you haven't already seen it, and why? But check it out. Make sure you find it, watch it, and if you've seen it 100 times, we'll be willing to watch it 100 more. It's just that great a film.
I'm seriously worried about anybody who listens or watches this pod and hasn't seen this movie. Like,
exactly.
I mean, it only comes up at least every other episode. So
this is true.
Yeah.
So maybe we do a poll and figure out if we have to do a screening on 2/7 for any of the folks we need to improve their lives.
We should do it anyway.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean,
it's gonna be badass.
Absolutely, yeah, indeed. It will be super green. The opportunity that we have to talk amongst each other is something that you can join in the conversation. If you follow us on Facebook, also on Instagram, just look up Real to Real Talk, the way we have it spelled on the screen, and join us there. Comment, like, all those things. And get ready, because we're going to keep doing this for a long, long time. You also want to continue to follow us here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us here. Please make sure you click that subscribe button, and also click on the notification bell so you know when the episodes land. And we are shameless in simply saying we like your likes. So click like on this episode and every other episode that you watch, and we will thank you so much. All right. Well, it's time for this week's weekly segments. I'm excited because it's time for What the Hell Did I Just Watch? It's back to you, Paul.
So I did something different this week, as I say a lot. I say that a lot, don't I? That comes up.
And I get excited every time.
This time I really did something different. Although, okay, so obviously there's the cliche, truth is stranger than fiction, correct? So that's been rattling around in my head. I watched some stupid thing and it mentioned it, and it was been rattling in my head for a few weeks now. And I was like, oh, I should do a documentary. So I went on a search for a weird documentary.
Nice.
And I found The Imposter. And it's available on, I believe it was on Tubi, Tubi. It's a free service thing. So, and it's a documentary of this guy who was 24, 25, who lived in Europe. And he was French. He was French. He was born in France of French and Algerian descent, and he found he was living in Spain at the time. Was wanted by Interpol for impersonating people. You don't find that out until later in the movie, but you know it's not a huge thing. And he finds his way into with the authorities in Spain. He's pretending to be a kid, and not just a kid, but like a 15-year-old kid. And he takes on the identity of a 15-year-old kid that was missing from Texas with blonde hair and blue eyes, and he has dark black hair and brown eyes. And the family accepts him as their missing son, who's been missing for 3 years. And
I have to say, what the hell? Yes,
exactly. And it's fascinating. And so it is crazy. Now, I will not lie. I was like, what the hell is wrong with these people? What the hell is going on here? This can't be real. And it takes a turn about 2/3 of the way through the movie that is just absolutely brilliant, where they finally get to, so what the hell? And they ask, and they actually, for the documentary, they're interviewing the guy. Like they interviewed they got the family to cooperate, which is like, why the fuck are you cooperating with this? Not only did they get the family, they got the guy to cooperate with this. Okay, so they got the guy to cooperate, and he's explaining his motivation, why he's doing all these things. So like up until he actually gets to Texas, it's like, you know, what are you doing? How are you doing this? What's going on? What's going through your head? And like at every step of the way, he's like, this is when I was sure it was going to fall apart. And then he gets to Texas, and like, and about 5 minutes after they get to Texas, it gets to the point of, so what the fuck? And he just comes out and says, yeah, I think they killed their son, and they just, by accepting me as their son, it made it so that they had plausible deniability for killing their son. And there is absolutely, and the craziest fucking thing about it is that there is absolutely a way where you can see that, yeah, that's actually probably what happened. I am telling you, this is crazy. And it was in Texas, so there you go.
Paul, I've listened to every word you've said, and I literally, as you were talking, was like, watch list on Prime, because it's available, and that's going to be one of my 150. So
there you go. The Imposter is it is
wow.
You literally, and then after everything unravels and the last 10 minutes, and you finally get to see like video of the guy as the kid, and you're like, what? It's crazy. It is so crazy.
I am so excited.
I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for when I was looking for like, what the hell did I just watch? It totally worked. I'm not gonna, it totally worked. It wasn't what I was looking for, so I might try documentary again. I might not. I might just watch one. You know, like I have to I have to change my search, is what I'm saying. I have to do a better job of researching to find the purely bananas bonkers documentary that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know, but it was good enough that it qualified, and yeah. So
I mean, the story alone. I mean,
it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, what the hell did I just watch?
Exactly. Very apropos.
Yeah.
It's on Prime, and it's included with your Prime subscription if you have it. Yeah. And it's,
I wish I know, because it just was like it just said it was on Tubi. It didn't say it was on Prime, and I had to watch it with commercials. That sucked.
Unless I mean, I'm looking at the description. It's exactly what you said it is, and so yeah.
It's just called The Imposter. I mean, that's all it is. So
yeah, if you want to find out things to watch that just are out there, you got to listen to Paul every week here on Real to Real Talk. Another splendid addition to that series, Paul. Thank you, and trust me when I say that's probably going to get watched tonight.
Good.
It's only 98 minutes long, so
yeah, it's and
Is that going to be before or after you watch The Fifth Element again?
See how you are, Susan? I had this all planned out somewhere around the same time, kind of. I'm still working through season 7 of Wentworth, and so that's going to take up a lot of time too. So,
oh boy.
At some point, and it's funny. Before we move on, I do want to say, this is actually Real to Real Talk, a movie and shows podcast. So at some point, I would love to hear your thoughts on some fantastic series out there. So that's for a future discussion. So. All right. Well, again, Paul, thank you. I appreciate your contributions and encourage everyone to watch The Imposter. And now it is time to figure out what Susan finally saw. Susan, wow us.
Yes, I'm excited about this one. So on I guess Saturday? Friday night, Saturday night, I don't remember which night it was. I watched the movie called The Island with Ewan McGregor.
You had mentioned you're a McGregor fan.
I am, very much. I really liked this movie. I really did. I wasn't sure I was going to when first things were going. I was like, but then I found myself kind of like really wrapped in it and being like, what's going to happen next? You know? So I think it's definitely one of my newer favorites. I think even though knowing what's going to happen, I could watch it again. I think the part that I loved the most was like when they're actually in his sponsor's apartment, apartment, that
Tom
like
Lincoln, yeah.
that everything that's going on, like that he's a motorhead, that he's into fancy alcohols and stuff like that. That's all actually Ewan McGregor. Like him as a person is into motorcycles and fast cars and like
Nice.
that. And it was funny because I remember I remember talking the car that they're using, the car that Tom Lincoln and the clone take it, and it's a Cadillac, and it's like, I used to watch a lot of, I'm big into cars, so just leave it there. And I was so excited about the car. Like I'm holding on because I was like, look at the car. And of course, I mean, and I ride a motorcycle, so I mean, clearly that was like, it was part, it's just like, this is so neat. But I really liked it, and I did research after I watched it, and the different things that they talk about, like the scene where they cut open the plastic like sack, and falls out, and it's actually like 157 gallons of KY jelly.
Oh wow.
So you'd like to know that if you did, it's 157 gallons of KY jelly.
That could be a party.
I mean, clearly it was. Just saying. Can you imagine making that phone call though? Like, hello, I would like to order 7 gallons.
Yes.
And
do you sell your jelly in bulk?
55-gallon drum. I need 3. So yeah, I mean, that should be. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it, and so thank you for suggesting.
It's a fun movie, and it's funny because it's fun. It's pure action. Michael Bay. This was long before.
Keep in mind,
visibly flying out of cars. Yeah.
Like at the beginning of this year, actually no, in December of last year, like we basically did the Michael Bay episode just to be able to talk about The Island for like 15 minutes. So
this is true.
that was like literally our conversation when we were like, oh, we could do a Michael Bay episode and we could just talk about The Island for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
We were both like,
it's just and it's this hidden gem for a lot of people. A lot of people just pass right by it, and
well, to be perfectly honest, I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't even heard of it before.
Yeah. Because
y'all were, and partially because of that episode, but I do go back and like look through and listen to all the older episodes and stuff like that. And for me, I was like, I missed this.
Yeah.
Somehow I missed it, and I hadn't
not
heard
alone.
Of it. And being that that I really like Ewan McGregor, I was kind of frustrated with myself, I guess. I'm gonna look at it like there's a few movies like that where I'm like, oh, I really love this actor, and then Sergio or Paul, you're like, well, have you seen da 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 da? And I'm like, no. And it's like, well, you can't be a super fan of this person if you haven't seen this movie. So there it is.
I know. I think I speak for both of us. I'm glad you saw it, because it is one of the ones I can revisit at any time. Sean Bean as a villain is just so Sean Beanie. I mean, he's just awesome.
The phrase "Sean Bean is mean" was uttered.
Well, and it's everyone in this movie that even Steve Buscemi. I mean, why haven't we talked about him on Favorite Actors? Because he's just. I mean, it's got all the Michael Bay markers. It's got all the actors that everybody stands out in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those movies that needs more love, man. So
I agree. What you said with every actor that stands out in one of the actors. I can't remember what the character's name is, but he's the guy that works in the lab across from Lincoln, and he's got like long hair, and he's like, he finally ends at the end, he asks, where did the tubes go, after this question. I was like, I can place him, I know that actor from somewhere, and it's because he played in Star Trek Voyager
Right. Yeah.
repeated character for a while, and I was like, I can't believe I recognized him.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen Voyager, so.
And it also has the guy from the DiGiorno cheese stuffed crust pizza commercial.
And
cheese crust.
I love the arc that Jimon Hansu goes through as the black operative, the black ops guy that has to go find them. And
good one.
Yeah, there's just so much good stuff with this movie. I need more people to see it. So
I agree.
Thank you, Susan. That is a fantastic entry into Susan Finally Saw. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. So, all right. Well,
you knew that was going to be the thing, didn't you, Sergio?
The movie?
Yeah. You knew that was her. No? Okay, cool.
No.
Cool.
I mean, I've
stopped talking to him about it before.
I was
be like, here's my list, pick one.
Well, and it's funny because there are, I think, you know by now, Paul, that I do play a role sometimes.
Right.
But I like being surprised sometimes, or, at times like this, because again, The Island is one of those movies like Hudson Hawk that I'm like, why haven't you seen this? And people are like, I'm like, oh, just watch the movie. Don't judge it based on what people say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of this week's Susan Finally Saw. And now I'm going to talk about a real-time rewind. A real-time rewind, I told you guys, in the month of November will be a movie that is so bad that it's good. And I also mentioned last week that Taylor Kitsch would have 2 movies that would be featured in this spot this month. If you're not familiar with Taylor Kitsch, it's probably because of the movies he makes. He made one called Battleship. I want to say, and I think I'm right, that this is the only Hasbro movie production movie ever made, because I've not seen that, because literally when Battleship opens, that's like, produced by Hasbro. And I'm like, yeah. As a matter of fact, when I first saw this movie, I, for some reason, didn't make the connection that this was a play on the game Battleship. I just went to go see it because it was an action movie and Peter Berg was directing it. And so I went, and they literally, within this movie, if you haven't seen it, they literally have a battle sequence between 2 ships in which, because of sonar buoys and all this other stuff, they can't see each other.
Oh God.
So they have to call out coordinates on a map, just like you would in Battleship. I will say that there was a point in this movie, as I watched it on the night it opened, that I thought to myself, if anybody says you sunk my battleship, I'm out of here. I'm going.
Didn't happen.
No. It
I'm
didn't
offended.
happen. It didn't happen.
That would be the only reason I would watch it.
This movie is, again, pure action, corny as all get out, horrible dialogue, poorly played by some of his play. Liam Neeson must have needed a paycheck. But the point is that it is so bad, it's awesome. I love it. I bought it on Prime. I own it. It's like, I love this movie. And so if you just want some senseless action to enjoy on an afternoon, I recommend Battleship. It's a lot of fun. And there is a classic moment. It's that classic action movie moment where it seems like all is lost, but then a miracle happens. And that happens in this movie. I'm not even going to give it away because I'm going to insist that you guys try it out. But let's just say that some old salty World War II veterans get a chance to take out the aliens. It's awesome.
Statler and Waldorf? No.
Say again?
Statler and Waldorf? No.
Oh my gosh, that would only improve the film. All right, so that's this week's real-time rewind, the movie Battleship. Check it out; it's a lot of fun, and don't come to me if you didn't like it. So, all right. Well, again, don't forget you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Check out Real to Real Talk and visit with us. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you're watching, and tell us what you want us to talk about in future episodes, and we will do that. All right. Also on YouTube, make sure you click on subscribe, click that notification bell, and that way you'll know when our episodes land, and give us likes. Not just because we say so, but because hopefully you're liking what you see. And you can comment on the episodes as well. And maybe even share our YouTube page and such with your friends and invite them to come check us out here at Real to Real Talk. All right, it's now time for real quick reviews. Paul, I hear you've got a couple this week.
Two. Okay, so first one is on Apple TV Plus. It's you've heard of Werner Herzog, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. He makes documentaries. Don't know if you knew that, but yeah, okay. And he has a new one out on Apple TV Plus. It's called Fireball: Visitors from Darker Worlds. Ooh. And it's a documentary about meteors and meteorites. And yeah, it's friggin' amazing. Like, Sergio, I don't know what I have to do to get you to go on to Apple TV Plus. I don't know. Like, I would have thought the Tom Hanks movie was going to be enough, but apparently it wasn't. Go get yourself Apple TV Plus to watch Fireball: Visitors from Darker Worlds. It's really fascinating. I mean, if you have like a science geek bone in your body at all, or like, you know, astronomy bone in your body, whatever. It's fascinating. It's fantastic. It's everything that you would expect a meteorite movie to be about, and it's just great. It's really interesting. Yeah, and you get to hear Werner Herzog's voice.
And the title once more, Paul?
Fireball.
Visitors
from Darker Worlds. So it's Fireball: Visitors from Darker Worlds.
I need to see that.
Yeah. And the other movie is called Jingle Jangle: A Christmas Journey. So Netflix decided to beat everybody else to the punch to their Christmas movie releases. First one's to the gate, get my view, and I watched Jingle Jangle, starring Forrest Whitaker, a personal favorite, as I have indicated previously. Yeah. Songs from Johnny Legend, as well as one of the collaborators from with Bruno Mars. So like the songs are really good. Like I really enjoyed all of the musical numbers. Narration, like Felicia Rashad does is like sort of the narrator. Like she's a character in the movie, but throughout the movie is basically like a flashback type of thing, and it's Felicia Rashad telling a Christmas story to her grandkids. Anyway, there's a really, really, really good movie in this movie. Unfortunately, that's not what we get. So we only get a okay to good movie. I feel like it just needed like somebody to sit down with it and say, all right, this is where your movie is, and you're like here and here and here and here and here and here. Just stay here, stay in that lane. You know, more of Felicia Rashad's character, more of, you know, like, and just but hey, look, it's extremely well acted. Peele, not Jordan Peele, but the other one. I can't think.
I think I have it right here.
Where is it? Okay, I got it. I beat you to it. Keegan Michael Key. Okay. Keegan Michael Key is in it and is fantastic and is not given remotely enough to do in this. And that, honestly, that's really the crux of my problem is that they should have, that was the focus of the movie, was his character's interaction with Forrest Whitaker's character should have been like the thrust of the movie, but it's schmaltzy, and so there's nothing about that storyline that would have been schmaltzy. So they lean really, really, really heavily into the schmaltz, which it's a Christmas movie, so that's gonna be what you expect, and so it's fine for what it is. I am sad because it could have been a lot better, but the songs are fantastic. So there you go.
Okay, well, two very different films, Fireball and Jingle Jangle. I don't know that I got ratings, Paul, from you.
Oh, sure. Fireball, we'll say 4 with guac. Okay. And then Jingle Jangle, I mean, it's a completely harmless Christmas movie, so I'm gonna just say 3 tacos and be done with it. You know,
all right,
no reason to be mean. There's
Santa
no reason
might
to
put you on the naughty list if you don't give it at least 3.
Like,
so.
If you've ever seen a Netflix Christmas movie before, it's that. Like, so
Yeah.
like Kurt Russell had one either last year or the year before, like I think it was called The Christmas Chronicles, where he played Santa. And it was just like, again, there was a good movie there, but what they produced just isn't as good as the movie that needed to be made after rewrites. But that's the problem with Netflix, is they don't need to go through rewrites because screw it, we're Netflix. You know, so so a lot of their stuff, another like that Michael Bay movie from December, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the one thing that I'm learning about studio films is that they actually kind of do know what people want and are pretty good at giving us what we want sometimes. And so, yeah, it's good. It's all right. It's a nice little Christmas movie. If you have kids, I highly, highly recommend it. It's perfect for kids.
All right. Well, Jingle Jangle is definitely out there, as Paul has shared, and also check out Fireball. I love the title of that movie. Visitors from Darker Worlds.
Yeah, Fireball.
So cryptic.
And it's fascinating.
Great movie poster, by the way.
Oh, I
Great
did want to
poster.
mention one thing about Jingle Jangle. Okay, so if you have kids, you should watch it. Also, if you love songs about math, you definitely need to watch it, because one of the songs is called The Square Root of Impossible. And the gist of the song is that the square root of impossible is me, which means that if you square me, i.e. if you clone me, I am impossible. And the mental gymnastics that I go through with the square root of impossible is it's in the like first third of the movie, and like I was totally ready to love the movie and give it 4 tacos right then and there, but then like it kept going. But that's okay. So there's a lot. If you like songs about math, this is one for you as well.
Gotcha.
So there you go.
All right. Well, always fun times. Make sure you keep up with us week to week so you know what movies are coming out and where they can be found. And that's what we do here.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of yet another episode of Reel to Reel Talk. We are now on the second 50 that we plan to do. We thank you so much for joining us week to week. We enjoy doing this for you. Paul, Susan, it's always a lot of fun. I already look forward to next week and the next few weeks, because we've got some exciting stuff coming up over the next few weeks. So, all right. Well, again, thanks to all of you for constantly being here with us. On behalf of Susan and Paul, we wish you guys a fantastic week. Whenever you're watching this, just remember we're thinking about you. And we always say you're awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. We will see you next time on Reel to Reel Talk.